All right, Francesco, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So you work with all the teams at Stanford across different sports, different genders, seniors, freshmen. So there are some differences in the sports, but what I'm curious is there anything about the tennis players that you work with in general or tennis players specifically that you find have different challenges from a sports psychology standpoint compared to other sports?
Yeah, there are general stereotypes that people put different athletes in from different sports, and obviously there are lots of people who break the mold. This has been talked about before, but the aspect of a solo competition, obviously doubles, you have a team, which creates a very different dynamic. But particularly in singles, it is a very one-on-one sort of affair. And so you get athletes who both maybe relish that. They like the control. They like that all the agency is in their hands. I'm going to win this or I'm going to lose this. I can dictate what's going on. And it also kind of predisposes you because all of that pressure is on you. There's not really someone you can pass to. There's not someone you can rely on. If you're feeling a little weaker on some things, you can't just say, hey, actually, I'm going to stay back and you shoot today. You do sort of either develop into or it selects for people who have more of like a self-reliant mentality, someone who's going to do things their way and for themselves, which when it comes to the psychology part and the coaching part, and I'm sure you've seen this coaching athletes, people get kind of, hey, here's what's going to help me, and I got to do that for me, and you're not going to be out there with me. You're not going to help me if my forehand isn't really landing deep and I'm getting punished on it. You're not going to hit it for me, and I'm the one who has to go out there all by myself. So it can create these interesting dynamics where players will want to do things a safe way or a way that they can rely on, or even if they want to learn, even if they're open to it, you're out there alone, full stands, it's 3-all, the semis and the NCAAs. You're really going to use that new foot drag serve technique that you've been using, or are you just going to kind of do the same thing that you were doing? And I think that's one of those things that's obviously present in all sports, but in tennis, because it's just you, it highlights individuality and it highlights self-reliance in a way that it's both useful for development and also can lead to some tricky patches to work through when things aren't going as well.
One thing I notice with my clients that I work with remotely, because we do a lot more talking than hitting, is you spoke about having things under your control, right? But there's also like another human on the other side of the net that's actively trying to make it difficult for you. I
Yeah.
have found that people are very slow to give credit to the other side. So it's always, what could I have done differently? What I
Yes.
did this wrong. And sometimes I'm like, dude, the guy just hit a good shot, like which he's going to
Yeah.
do 20 to 25 times throughout this match. It has nothing to do with you, actually. Have
Yeah.
you found that because it's a solo sport and you think you have so much control that you actually don't really acknowledge stuff going on the other side of the net?
I think it's a really great observation, and it's actually something that you'll talk about a lot in your videos of, hey, what's the other guy doing? And a lot of us are so focused, and I think tennis does breed that. Like, what am I doing? In team sports, I think you have to be aware of what everyone is doing because there's so many moving parts that you kind of need to know, even if an opposing player isn't the best player on the team, you got to know where they are. You got to know what they're doing. You got to know how they're interacting with the other members of your team. You kind of are forced into that. With tennis, you miss a ball and you can say, well, I missed the ball. Or you can say, hey, I hit a great winner. Great, I hit a great winner. You don't really need to know what's going on the other side. And I think that's one of the challenges with tennis is, there's so much pressure or emphasis on how are we performing? How am I doing? How am I feeling? How's the ball coming off my racket? Whereas, yeah, you're playing Andy Roddick, you're going to get aced. I don't care who you are, it's just going to happen. Like you're saying, you got to give credit to the other guy, but I think we want to control so much. And control, too, like if you look at it from a zoomed out psychological perspective, I mean, uncertainty is kind of everywhere. And uncertainty tolerance is probably one of the more useful skills to work on over the course of our lives. But it is scary to not know how something's going to go. It can also be exciting, depending on how you see it. Uh, a lot of times it's scary, especially if we're playing or we're competing for, if you're on the pro tour, you're playing for your rent money, you're playing for your airfare. If you're in college, you're playing for maybe going pro or keeping your scholarship, or if you're a rec player, you're playing for, I mean, gosh, a million different reasons. Um, But yeah, the idea of I don't know what's going to happen, or maybe I'm over here and Stokey's going to start chipping, and I'm not going to have a response to that. We start thinking I got to control this, and we have this false sense of power. Where really, like, I don't know, you could chip, and I just couldn't have an answer for it on that day, and that could be it. Or you could come out and you could just start hitting the lines every shot. What am I going to do? But we don't like that uncertainty. So then we start saying, oh, it's just me. If I could just hit my, and I think that's why you see, especially with I don't know how much it happens on the higher levels, but rec players, so much focus on technique. I mean, how many YouTube videos you've seen where it's like Sinner's forehand does this with the palm and this and the elbow, and it's like, yeah, I know he's got an incredible forehand, but like you've said in many of your videos, like it's not that you do that thing. It's can you hit the ball a little bit deeper and just do it two more times?
When you talk about the control element, I'm actually working through this as you're saying, but I guess one of my like overall philosophies with, especially at the recreational level, even honestly, even when we got to D1 and we're playing Duke and Sanford, is I'm like, I'm not afraid to give up control to the other person on the tennis court because I'm quite certain they probably don't have the largest tennis IQ I've ever seen either. Like,
Yeah.
we're not always playing someone brilliant over there. So I'm like, hey, if you give them control to start making a ton of decisions, my theory is that they're going to be a lot of bad decisions. Like,
Yeah,
you don't have to be the
totally.
doer. It's okay to let them make those choices. But like you said, I think people would rather make a poor choice themselves than even just give up the option. But I think once you let the other 4 or 5 player or the other collegiate player make a choice under pressure, a lot of times they're going to make a bad one.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And it kind of speaks to, now that I'm thinking about, in real time what you're saying, we tend to default to either saying, oh man, the other guy is so good. Like, if I don't do something incredible, this guy's just going to destroy me. Now, yeah, if I play a pro player, yeah, he probably will destroy me. That's the probability, just because their level is so much higher. But when we're talking about relatively equal skill levels, you have people who just say, oh my gosh, if I'm playing Stokey, he's never going to make an error. And I got to make sure that I'm playing, out of my mind. It's like, well, like you're saying, it's not really true. You're going to make errors. Everyone makes errors. The other way that people go about it, and I've seen this with some of the college guys and some of the pros I've worked with, is the other side of like, oh, I should totally beat this guy. There's no way I should lose to him. Like, no way you should lose to him? I mean, no way? And that is like it's a control thing, I think. You're not talking about probability. If you say, I should beat this guy, you're saying 100% the outcome will be me winning or else something drastically wrong has occurred. Like, yeah, okay, if I play Nadal, the probability he beats me, very high. It's not zero, right? Or the probability that I win is not zero. It's non-zero. It's low. But when you come out thinking, oh, I should beat someone, or, hey, I'm at Stanford, or I'm at UCLA, or I'm at wherever, I'm at Duke, and I'm playing someone from a D3 school, I should win. And you hear coaches say this all the time. Oh, we should beat that team. Or, players like, I should never lose to that guy. Or I should never go to a tiebreak with that guy. It's like, what does that even mean?
Do you think there's anything wrong with, again, I know my wife actually told me last night, she's like, you're one of the most unique people I've ever met. I was like, I'm gonna take that as a compliment. But like,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem saying things like to me if I'm saying what I think is a fact. So for example, if you're like, hey, Nadal probably beats me 99 out of 100 times. It's a
Yeah.
fact. It doesn't mean I have to play differently. Like I don't have to
Yeah.
act like I had a 50-50 chance against him.
Yep.
Should that really impact my strategy? Hopefully not, because I'm always using optimal strategy and I'm going, hey, this could be the one time. Great. I'm all in on that. I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes people want to run away from truths like that, or like you said, they just generalize it and over exaggerate. Oh my God, Stokey will never miss. Well, that's obviously not
Yeah.
a fact. I will miss a ton. I'll probably miss on a third of my points. So you've now said something that's not true. If
Yes.
you and I were playing a set and you said, look, he's a heavy favorite, that's a fact. Well, actually, I've never seen you play, but I would
Yeah.
assume that I am a favorite, right?
You're the favorite. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I don't think that sometimes I almost feel like people shy away from those truths. Like you can't say those things confidently and still perform the way you want. You almost have
Yes.
to be like, yeah, like I have just as good a chance to win as he does. I'd be like, well, maybe not, but that also doesn't mean you can't compete in that match.
100%. I think being able to accurately identify what is a skill, and it's something we don't do very often. So we'll go to one extreme or the other. It's saying like, hey, yeah, if I'm playing Stokey, I mean, you are a more skilled player than I. So the chance that I beat you is lower than the chance that you beat me. I don't know what the number is, but it's a pretty good bet that you'll win. Now, with that said, what can I do to give myself the best opportunity, the best chance to make that happen? Yeah, Nadal's going to beat you or I, 999,000 out of a million, right? But also, with that being true, now we can say, all right, well, how do I make that happen? If it can happen. And that's the issue I have when people are like, oh man, like Stokey's never gonna miss. Oh, he's gonna miss. I'm gonna miss. Everyone's gonna miss. And the other side of it is like, oh, I should beat this guy. You can say, hey, if we play 20 matches, probably just if we both played our average level, I'll win most of those matches. But saying I should win, now you've created a zero chance of divergence. So if anything goes against you, you come out and blank the guy 6-0 or you get a 6-1, 6-2 set, and all of a sudden it's 3-all, 15-30, and you're like, wait a sec, I should be beating this guy. Well, I mean, I don't know, should means 100%. And now all of a sudden you're faced with something that challenges the 100% assumption, and that can cause a lot of anxiety, as opposed to the best players are like, oh yeah, totally. I'm Djokovic, you are whoever. Yeah, you could have a good set for sure. You could have a good match. And hey, it looks like you're starting a tree. Yeah, okay, now what am I going to do to help sway it in my favor? So I'm a huge fan of that.
Do you think players are tennis players more concerned with outcome than you find other athletes to be? And if yes or no, is part of that? I feel like in tennis, I mean, every point you're getting I won or I lost. It's not
Yeah,
like when someone makes a 3-pointer, you didn't win anything. You scored 3 points. You don't even use those
yeah.
words, but you're winning points, you're winning games, you're winning a set, you're getting a break. So it's just always win, lose, win, lose. Is that a challenge that tennis players face compared to other sports?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, you look at soccer. I mean, if a team scores 2 goals in a game, that's a pretty active game. Whereas in tennis, you're winning, loads of points, losing loads of points. I think most people in general are outcome oriented. You can work to develop the skill to be more process oriented. But yeah, tennis is tough because of the way the scoring system is, as opposed to being, hey, score as many points as you can, and when the time's up, we'll see who has more points. It's every point you're getting closer to a different conclusion, and then you think, okay, well, I have to win and lose more very small bites of the overall competition. So I think it does lead people to really focus on, oh man, I double faulted. It's like, okay, you may have double faulted, but if you have overall more points won on your second serve than the other guy, that's great, right? If you're winning 80% of your second serve points because you're just pulling a Kyrgios or a Philippoussis and just banging it, and you double fault once. I mean, the reason why those guys are successful is because they realize the math works out in their favor. Yeah, I'm going to double fault, but I'm going to win way more points. But yeah, I think when you're winning and losing so frequently, every point people think of it as I'm winning and losing, yeah, it makes it harder to think about the process for sure.
Why do you think players are so concerned with outcome? Because in general, I would say, like, this actually happened to me in Padel 2 nights ago. We were in the fourth set, and I knew when the fourth set ended that we were all going home. And so we were up like 5-3, and I'm serving. And like, it's not a tournament, so whatever. Like, I intentionally bricked a few volleys because I was like, I want to go to a breaker. I want 20 more minutes. Playing for me is winning.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't actually want to beat you 1-1 and go home. I want to play the maximum amount because I actually just love playing. And yes, when
yeah,
I'm in a tournament, I want to be good. I want to get better. But at the end of the day, it's a recreational sport for 99% of people listening right now, and it's not worth a lot of money. So why is it that you feel like in a USTA match, you can watch out, you can see two people so nervous, and the impact of that win or loss in their life is cosmically insignificant. And I understand that we all care. I care about things too. But 5 minutes later, whether I won or lost, I'm going to let it go, and I'm just going to be happy I got to play tennis or paddle that day. Why
yeah.
do you think people get so obsessed with outcome?
I think your wife is right. You are a very unique individual. That's a fantastic outlook. But it kind of goes to speak to what your goals are. And I think something that we could all use work on is identifying what we're actually doing something for. We have we have goals that we say to ourselves or we say out loud, like, I want to work at becoming a better player, or I like hitting, in the evenings and it's sunny and that's great. We also have other goals that kind of creep in there. We may not acknowledge them. Hey, my life's not really going the way I want it to. but here's one thing that I'm going to do well. Here's one thing. I'm going to come on the tennis court. I'm going to come on the padel court, and I'm going to win. And I'm going to, whatever it is, you can insert a whole host of different motivations that people have, whether it's, hey, I want to prove to myself I'm a good person, or hey, I want to make sure I stay on this team, or if I lose to that guy, then everyone's going to make fun of me, or, I'm in college and hey, we shouldn't lose to whatever school. And if I do and I bring the team down, or yeah, rec players, it's like, yeah, this is how I measure myself. And I've spent so much time, so much energy. And so I should win. Again, it's like that. I should whatever. And on the pro level, it does get different because that is your livelihood. So the outcome is like, yeah, if you get into the first round of the U.S. Open, that's a whole lot more money than if you lose in third round of the qualies. So there, it becomes a little, the margins become finer in terms of, how focused on outcome we can be. But yeah, a lot of rec players, I mean, myself included, I'm embarrassed to think about it, but for a lot of my life, I thought about tennis like I was a professional player, and I'm very far from it. And it doesn't matter. Like, no one cares how well I play.
This will be the cheesiest thing I've ever said on the pod, but like when you say like, oh, you want to control a certain aspect of your life, or hey, I'm going to go dominate this. I, it's like millions and billions of people have won tennis matches and have won tournaments
Yeah.
and have been a part of a USTA league. It's a great achievement. It's also probably more common than looking at a recreational player who has mastered their mind and who has an
Yeah.
amazing mindset. I'm like, wow, like to me, of course, I want to win at anything I'm doing, but it's a greater compliment if someone's like, dude, that guy hit a let cord winner on set point and like you didn't even flinch. Like it looked like you didn't
Yeah.
care. And it's like, oh, because I didn't. I'm actually
Yeah.
okay with it. And there's a million points. That compliment rings true for me way more than someone like, Stokey, your serve is so good. And I'd be like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's because I hit like 10,000 with a coach when I was younger. Like that's not that
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
So I find it that I'm finding less and less people who value that like mastery of themselves and their mind through competition versus just
Mhm.
I won my 4-5 match. Like how do we
Yeah.
steer more players towards wanting that mastery?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question because that sense of accomplishment internally, of hey, I had a tough day at work and I went out and I still competed, or I'm playing a guy who's a lot better than me and I still stuck to my game plan. I mean, that's a really fantastic achievement. It's not super visible unless you're really watching for it, and that's some of the things that I'll tell our guys is like, what we're working for may not be apparent on the outside. You'll know, and over time the results will come. But I think that's part of the struggle that we have is like, if I go out and play a 4-5 match or something, or if I'm playing a 5-0 match, I'm like, oh gosh, what happens is there's a W and an L, and then I want to be the W, and then I don't really want to be the L. And after a match, people go like, hey, great work, you won, or ah man, tough loss, yeah, you really played well. But then we want the kind of validation or the confirmation of like, hey, you did a good job. And I think it's just easier because that's what we tend to lionize in I mean, a lot of cultures really. But I think, like you're saying, that there's so much growth in recognizing, hey, actually, it's really fulfilling for me to be able to go out and just compete, and be present. And through tennis or through whatever, I can actually improve myself as a person, or I can change my experience of the rest of my life. I think sometimes rec players do this a lot. It's like, I'm going to see tennis as this thing that is siloed in its own little context, and I'm going to master that. It's like, well, no, it's all kind of related.
I'm going to
It's
share
a
one story to put a bow on this one, and then
yeah,
I want to move on to something different. But like one big thing for me in my life that helped me understand that was with golf. So my wife played golf. She coached at Duke, great coach, and she's helped me a ton. And there was a
yeah,
day where I was at the Duke golf course, and it's a hard course, and my average score there was probably like mid to high 70s, and I shoot a 68. It's just magical. And
yeah,
I get off the course and I call her. I'm like, dude, you're not going to believe it. Like, guess what I shot? And I'm pretty sure she was having a tough day at work. And so she's like, what?
yeah,
And I'm like, 68. And she goes, cool. Did you have more fun? And I was like,
yeah,
honestly, no, it was about the same amount of fun as usual. I was talking to say, like, no, it actually doesn't matter. Like,
yeah.
I was happy to shoot a good score. I'm still trying to, but like, no, I usually leave pretty happy after I played a round of golf. And ever since
Yes.
then, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I am trying to win my paddle match. I am trying to win as a coach when I have a player out there. But the whole process of it, that was like a huge learning thing for me. And like, again, like I said, she was probably having a bad day. Usually she'd be more excited for me about it. But it was like a huge learning thing for me. One thing I want
Really
to get
quick,
on, oh, sorry, go ahead.
really quick. No, I think this it's fantastic. It reminds me of something from the inner game of tennis. I don't, you probably read that book. Phenomenal book. But it's sort of like, again, what am I doing this for? Are you doing it to win or shoot a lower score? Which, I mean, that's where some of the emptiness is. It's like no one cares whether you shot a 72 or 68. Or is it I want to improve because it gives me the ability to enjoy this game in a more complex way, right? Like obviously I want to win and I can get overly competitive and whatnot, but over the last several years I've realized, hey, I actually want to get better at tennis because the more I improve certain things, the more nuanced the game becomes. Now I'm playing a more complex game and it's more engrossing and it's more fun. So just it's kind of reasons why we improve. I think it make a big difference in terms of what we get out of it.
Absolutely. So one thing, I made a YouTube video probably like 2 months ago. I played a practice set against a good college player. He obviously wiped the floor with me. And someone gave me a comment about my return. And so I was sitting on a plane and I was like, huh, I wonder how many returns I missed. And I'm thinking through the set, which happened like 10 days ago. And I remember every point in order. And so I
Huh.
made a video on that, just like, hey, how could you possibly make an adjustment unless you actually know what has happened? You said like
Yeah.
stating reality. A lot of players have told me watching that video, they're like, I'll never be able to do that. When I do a Zoom lesson with players, they can't recall points, even though they've
Hmm.
played it and now we're watching it back. It's like, hey, I don't even know if I held or broke here. Like, I don't know what's going on. What are some things? It seems to me like there's an emotional element to that. Their
Yeah.
mind might be racing. They might be thinking about future outcomes. What are some things that players can do to get themselves in the present? Because off the tennis court, their memories are great and they're
Yep.
very aware, and whatever their profession might be, they're experts. And then when they just have to remember if there was two forehand return misses in a 3 minute window, it's like it never happened. So how can they be more
Yeah.
present and kind of keep track of that stuff better?
Yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic thing to think about, and part of it is that our attention will kind of go wherever the emotion is generally, or wherever the anxiety is. So tennis, for example, yeah. I mean, gosh, when I was younger, I'd play half a set against someone and realize they were a lefty. And my coach at the time was like, "How did you not know they were a lefty?" And I was like, "Well, I wanted to hit the ball so well, or I wanted to feel the ball, or I was trying to hit big serves." And so I think whatever we're tuned towards thinking is important, or that gives us, more worry, or we're more uncertain about, we'll just kind of focus on that. So I mean, you can have someone who's like, "Yeah, I have no idea how many times he served with the backhand. I was just like, oh my gosh, I have to get the ball and play." Part of that can be like oh, go for it.
No, well, you just said something there, and it made me think of. I was talking to Mike about it, like playing like a video game. So, for example,
Yeah.
if I said, Francesco, your next tennis match, I can literally, you can have my tennis brain, your body, your personality. It's just all my tennis knowledge will
Oh,
go into your brain. Would you take that?
1,000%. Yeah.
Okay. So I will say that to my kids, and I'm like, cool, hit high down the middle cross court, and then they won't do it. Right? They
Yeah.
won't do it. I'm like, that's if I was you with your strokes and you're playing this kid, that's exactly what I would do. Right? And
Yeah.
so I'm sending these YouTube videos out. I'm trying to make them as simple as possible. So most people say yes to that question, and then they
Yep.
will go out and play a match and they'll forget all about it. Like you
Yep.
said that in a match you were worried about how you're hitting the ball. So
Yeah.
someone I'll work with remotely, we don't ever talk about how they hit the ball. We talk about where they're hitting the ball, what they should be
Yeah.
doing, and they'll tell me some of the thoughts they've had. And I said, who told you to think that? Like,
Yeah.
certainly wasn't me, right? Like, are
Yeah.
you seeing someone else on the side? Like, so why do you think that is, that there's that inner drive? Because you might trust me 100% with your game, but when you go out and compete, I guarantee you're going to start thinking about some things I've never mentioned. So why do you think that
Oh,
is?
yeah. I think that part goes back to something we were talking about earlier. This idea that we could talk about everything and make perfect sense, but then I'm out there and I'm alone, and all of a sudden I hit a couple high balls down the middle, and the guy steps in and crushes it. Now I think, well, I don't know if that's working. I mean, you see this on the pro tour even. Great players, you see them do the strategy, and the more explosive of them will yell at their coaches, like, and tell them, hey, yeah, great game plan. But it's like, also, you did it 3 times, and you crushed it 3 times. But in my mind, if I'm out there, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, yeah, Stogie says hit cross. Duh, the guy's wiping my forehand cross. I like hitting it down the line anyways. I think I'm better at that. And then all of a sudden, now I'm kind of deviating because it's like, you're not there. I have to play it. And I think that when you're talking about your mentality, like I just want to be playing and I want to be improving and seeing what's happening, that would be a way to play sets. And I think that's what the best players do is they're saying, all right, I'm going to try playing 5, 10 sets where I'm just hitting cross and I'm going to see what happens, right? And pick up more data from it. So what I'm going to get out of it is learning, can I do that? Or do I need to improve at some skills to be able to do that better? But yeah, I think it is tough because when you get out there, there's so many different aspects of what's happening that we get distracted. And then, people don't know what their second serve percentage is or how many points they're winning off the second serve. Or, hey, I've served 17 times to your forehand and you've clocked 15 of them. Maybe I should serve somewhere else. But I think to answer the part of your question, like what can people do? Part of it is acknowledging there's so many things going on in tennis. It's just so complex. I'm obviously biased. I think it's a very complex sport. It's really difficult. So acknowledging that there's a lot of stuff and that you can only pick a couple things to focus on at any given time. As your skills improve, I think you have the capacity to autopilot more things. Like if you don't know how to hit a topspin forehand, that's going to be harder, right? Or if you don't know how to hit a topspin forehand on the run, which is a very different skill, then yeah, you're going to have to focus on that a little bit more. But as your skill level goes up, and I mean, we're not talking pro, we're talking 4-0, 3-5, 4-0. You generally have the tools. It's okay. Now, what are the things that I want to actually like make myself focus on? So I'm going to play a set where all I focus on is where is he serving, right? And so you slowly get. I mean, all this is exposure. It's all practice. It's all repetition. I mean, you've played God knows how many matches in your life, so you've had a lot of opportunity to say, okay, I've noticed here are serving patterns. Here's how a guy shows me his serving patterns. Here's what I'm going to watch out for that. I personally am still working on that. Where someone going to go on a tricky point or on a 30-all when it's 5-all. I'm still working on that skill of recognizing where does he like to serve? Because I get more into, oh man, I got to make sure I time my split step, right? So I think it's kind of choosing to focus or pay our attention to things that may not be what we instinctually want to pay attention to, rather things that are going to be really high yield for us to pay attention to down the line.
I'm probably far too trusting in life in general, but outside of tennis and anything that I'm not an expert in, so golf would be one of them. If I have a tournament and I ask my wife, like, what should I do? And she's like, these three things. I also am aware that like there's not 100% chance that'll work.
Yeah.
Like I'll play my best because there's no way. Otherwise, everyone would always be playing their best. I also
Yeah.
know there's more than three things to the game of golf. She has picked the three things that matter most for me. And she said, I understand there's a lot of other noise out there. You're not capable of it. Otherwise, I would have given you five things. Go
Yeah.
do those three things well. And I can be
Yep.
like a robot and just go, oh, my expert teacher, I know nothing about golf. My
Yeah.
expert told me what to do. I'm going to
Yeah.
go get an A plus on her test, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, I find that maybe it goes back to the agency and control. But like, by the way, you mentioned hitting cross court every ball. It's going to serve you well if you do that, right? But you go,
Yeah.
wow, every ball? And you're like, yeah, he said every ball because he
Yeah.
doesn't trust my ability to change directions. He doesn't trust my ability to do it at the correct times. He also trusts that the opponent is going to make a bunch of dumbass decisions at some point.
Hmm.
He's factored that all in. It's not going to be perfect. Boom. And I don't know if that's the agency side or the control side, but it's something I've found it's my personality to someone to tell me what to do. And I go, cool, I'll go
Yeah.
do that so literally.
Yeah.
And yet I
Yeah.
find players like they're getting information on YouTube and they're just kind of blending it in with
Yeah.
their own knowledge, which usually doesn't work very well.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I mean, you do find players, you do find athletes in multiple sports, and people in general who will say, you know what, I'm gonna follow orders. I like that better. You tell me what to do, I'm gonna do it. You tell me to hit 80% of my serves to the backhand, I'm just gonna do that. And you do find athletes like that, and I think coaches usually describe those as like the more coachable athletes. Athletes who are just gonna kind of say, hey, I'll at least give this a shot. Sometimes you want to encourage athletes to do the opposite. You're like, hey, does this work for you, actually? I know you're doing it. But I think a lot of us, to get briefly existential about it, one of the kind of existential tenets that we consider is existential isolation, which is no one person can ever fully know another person. You and I could spend 80 years together on a desert island with only the other for company, and there's still part of our experience that is unknowable by the other. And I think especially when it comes to a pressure situation, like I don't know that you fully know me. I could trust you. I could say, hey, you obviously have way more tennis knowledge than I do. And then sometimes push comes to shove with enough pressure, with enough stakes. I'm like, what? I don't think Stokey knows that my forehand down the line just actually is better than my forehand cross. And yeah, maybe I should work on my forehand cross. I don't know if he realizes I'm so much more comfortable hitting that forehand down the line. So then it creates a little bit of uncertainty. And again, we don't like uncertainty. And then you got to pick something, just like, the Monfils or Sinner mid-match. Now we're not dragging our feet anymore. We're going back to the platform serve because I'm a little uncertain. So I'm just going to stick with what I know because that's what I know. And I got to hang my hat somewhere.
Right. Well, my take on that would always be like, well, I understand that, what you know. Are you happy with what you know, where it's gotten you? Because I'd be like, okay, like you came to me for a reason with your forehand, or you're not
Yeah.
winning these matches that you think you should win, and you've done what you should know. By the way, I don't know that what I told you is going to work either. Like, otherwise, I'd go put a bunch of money on it. But I also know
Yeah.
what's not going to work is what you've been doing your whole life or whatever you're
Yeah.
thinking through now. And like you
Yeah.
said, that kind of experimentation. One thing I want to touch on briefly, because we're running out of time,
Yeah.
is you mentioned how off the court can impact on the court. So
Yeah.
specifically for you, you work with a lot of college athletes. So there's big money on the line. People are gambling. They're getting paid, and they're 18 to 22-year-old kids, right?
Yeah.
And the 4 or 5 adult player has a job, has a family, has stressors. Like life is
Yeah.
not easy. And then you go and play tennis, whether it's in a dual match or your USTA league match. How does that off the court stuff filter into the performance element on court?
Yeah, I think it's huge, and I don't think it's talked about enough. I think there's a lot of emphasis placed on kind of context specific. So tennis specific, sports specific. What do I do on break points? Brad Gilbert winning ugly. Kind of how do I use strategy, box breathing, straighten my strings, all this stuff, which I think is fantastic. And if you've just come from like 6 meetings in a row and you're currently in a fight with your spouse because you're not sure exactly what to do with your third child and you're trying to figure out if you need to refinance them, it's like, well, okay, I mean, yeah, you can box breathe, and I think that's going to be useful. And also, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to expect yourself to then go out in court and, have a ton of resilience just because, right? Resilience is an exhaustible and replenishable resource rather than like a state trait. And so I think a lot of us just think either you're resilient or you're not resilient. But you're a college athlete with a lot on the line. You're a pro athlete. You're a rec player. Um, Everything that you have to go through during your day will tax you in some way or will add into your kind of stockpile of resilience. I think we often just don't think about, and we don't do the math well. It's kind of like we were talking about earlier, like we're not accurately identifying what's going on. If I have the most stressful day that I've had in 3 months, it's not reasonable to say I'm going to go out and everything is going to go amazing and I expect myself to perform. You can still do your best to give yourself the best shot. It doesn't mean you have to tank, or it doesn't mean you have to say, well, it's been a stressful day, so there's no way I can play well. That's not the answer either. It is being reasonable. Like, yeah, I haven't really been able to eat much today, and I've been on the run, and I haven't had time to like warm up. So let me be on my own side and try to help myself have the best chance of having the outcome I want, whatever that is. But I think a lot of times, with college athletes in particular, sleep, they're sleeping in dorms, substances are all of a sudden in their life, all these other competing interests, hobbies, classes, romantic relationships, friendship groups, social dynamics. It's like, we can talk about what to do when, on second serve returns, but if you feel like you're constantly isolated socially and you're not sure you fit in, I mean, that's actually going to be a much higher yield place for us to go. And that's where it's like this continuum between sports performance and just sort of life performance. So even take the emphasis off of performance, it's just how's your life going, right? There's so many different tenets. And, it's even at the pro level. I mean, gosh, you're traveling all the time. You're lonely a lot. Most tennis pros are not making a ton of money, especially at the beginning. There's a lot of stressors. So figuring out how to help yourself out with those can actually be massively high yield for then how you end up performing in whatever context you want, in this case, tennis.
So I saw something on Instagram. I can't remember who it was. I know it was a couple of months ago, but on the topic of resiliency, it was basically like if it didn't kill you, then you can withstand it because you're still
Hmm.
here. And so on small scales, like for example, I just went to London for this paddle tournament and I don't sleep all night. I'm in the back of the plane, some dude's reclining, which by the way, like should be a policy. We don't recline on people 6'2". So
Yeah.
I haven't slept at all, and I'm in this cab, and I'm nauseous as hell, and I've got this massive, massive headache, and all I'm telling myself is like, this will be over soon. I
Yep.
don't know when. I'm going to eventually get to the hotel. I'm not going to die in this car because of nausea or a headache. I'll
Yep.
eventually be able to take a Tylenol or something, or drink some water, take a nap, and then I will be fine soon. So
Hmm.
knowing that it will end and that it's not going to end me, or if I'm on the tennis court, oh, I'm down 6-1, I've missed 10 forehands. Okay, well, this match is not going to end my tennis career. Like,
Right.
I'm going to be fine. Eventually, I'm going to be fine, even though I don't feel that now. Are there anything that players can do actively to help build that resiliency muscle in them as competitors and as people in life in general?
Yeah, yeah, that's also a really great question, and there's such a fine distinction between, hey, right now this thing is not going to kill me, and I can still perform well, it's possible, even if I feel awful, or even if I haven't slept, or I feel super nauseous, and there's a very fine distinction between that and, yeah, I'm not going to prioritize my sleep, and I'm going to keep on just redlining it. I'm going to keep on trying to compete. We're flying from Hawaii to Malaysia to wherever, playing all these tournaments, and I'm just going to keep on going. This is going to kill me. The latter is going to eventually undermine your performance, whereas the former, what you're talking about, is saying, hey, I'm going to give myself a shot, and I'm going to try this out. And I think in terms of how to do that, it really is being conscientious about exposing yourself to situations like that. I think exposure is probably one of the kind of biggest determining factors in how people perform in really anything. How many times have you seen it? Right? How many times have you been down two breaks? How many times have you felt super nauseous and felt like, there's no way I'm going to be able to eat anything before I play? How many times have your strings just felt way too loose and the ball's launching? The more you experience that with the sort of approach of how do I help myself out here, rather than oh man, my strings are too loose. There's no way I can compete. There's no way I can play. You can experience that 100 times, and you're still just going to exit with, I can't play with these strings, right? My strings have to be perfect. Not speaking from experience. That's definitely
Right.
not me.
That's my
Definitely not
favorite
me.
one when people are blaming the half pound of tension for the forehand that went 10 feet deep. I have one last question for you, and you may or may not know the answer. I swear to God I heard this at one point, but it was that your brain doesn't hear sarcasm. So like one thing that I
Hmm.
will do is, and I mainly do this if you know me well or you're around me, especially in doubles or like on the golf course. I'm just talking trash. I'm just trying to make someone smile. So like I'll shank a wedge and I'll look at someone and be like, don't let me get hot because like I'm close.
Yeah.
Like that swing was
Yeah.
close. And even if I don't believe it, I'm just saying it to like stir the pot a little bit. But what I'm saying out loud is like, hey, I'm like one swing away from finding it, right?
Yeah.
And if I keep saying that over and over, number one, my body feels more relaxed, like I'm enjoying myself even though I'm not playing well, which gives me a chance to play well in the future. Whereas most people are
Yeah.
like in a shell. So I will get like sarcastically positive, mainly as a way to entertain myself or someone I'm around.
Yeah.
But I find it's still positive. Like even though I might not believe all of it, like it's getting me moving in an energy state towards
Right.
what I want. So I thought I read somewhere that your brain doesn't understand if you're telling yourself something sarcastically. It just hears it the
Huh.
same way. You know how they say if you say don't miss a forehand, all your brain hears
Yeah.
is miss a forehand.
Yeah.
They
Misfor.
said if you
Yeah.
sarcastically tell yourself you're so great, all your brain hears is, man, Stokey, you're so great. Is there any
Yeah.
truth to that whatsoever?
That's a great question. I mean, you get into the neurolinguistics of it, and our brains do respond to the words we say. Excuse me. I think the intent behind them also matters. So you're saying that kind of joking, kind of just to have a little bit more fun, take the pressure off. So whatever it is you're saying, your intent internally is, this is going to be a positive thing, right? And it's like when you see people get really angry when they're competing. Some people you can tell it's really directed at themselves. It's going to bring them down, and some you can tell it's like they're expecting more of themselves and they're backing themselves. They're saying, "Hey, I know you've got more. Come on, let's see that. Let's see that come out." So whether or not your brain can hear sarcasm, that's interesting. I'll have to look that up. I do think the intent behind it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm not being sarcastically mean to myself. Like great
Yeah.
forehand, like that's so good.
Yeah.
It's more like, hey man, I'm close. Like hey, I'm three swings away. I'm one service game away from figuring this
Yeah.
out. And even
Yeah.
like I don't know if I am or not, so I might as well convince myself a positive thing than a negative. Before we
Yeah.
go, we've covered a bunch of topics, many topics that we haven't covered. Overall, if you could have one parting shot for the average 4-0 player, like what would your best piece of advice be from this psychological side of the game?
I would say just sit down for a few minutes and ask yourself why you play. And not just the first answer that comes to your mind. Really think about it. Write it down. I'm a big fan of journaling, even though I don't do as much as I could benefit from. But like write down like, hey, why am I playing? Because a lot of times there are motivations, there are goals that we have that are kind of hidden, and they end up pulling the puppet strings a lot more than we realize. And I think it's really useful to acknowledge, hey, what am I doing this for? If you're saying, hey, I want to look good, or I want people to think I'm a great athlete, write that down. I mean, acknowledge that, because if that's part of what your value system is, useful to know that. It's not that you can't change your values. It's just you're probably working in the direction of that goal, even if you know it or not. So it's like, okay, Soki's saying just hit high down the middle, but I want people to think I'm really good. So now I'm going for a shot, and I'm violating one of the cardinal rules. I'm hitting a forehand line 6 feet wide, and you're like, why'd you ever miss that wide? Part of my brain is saying, I don't know why I did that. Part of it is like, yeah, but I kind of wanted to hit the ESPN highlight reel shot. And we may not acknowledge that, but all those motivations are changing our behavior and are changing how we respond to different situations.
I think that actually that's so interesting. I think that actually happens a ton. And the one the one counter I have to that with players is like I do think it's a very prominent thing that you want other people to think you're good. And I
Yeah.
go, you know who you really want to think you're good? Me. And you know,
Yeah.
you know how I would think you're good if you hit high cross court, not if you go down the
Yeah.
line. So do you want the other three fives validation, or do you want the professional? Like I remember Thomas Johansson came on the pod a couple years ago. He's won an Australian Open, and he's like, dude, hit every ball cross court. That's what you
Yeah.
should do. It's basically what I would do. And I think if he watched you doing that, he'd be like, oh, they know how to play tennis.
Yeah.
I'd rather have Johansson think I know what I'm doing than the 4-0 from the park who's just watching randomly.
Totally. I mean, I when I started working with Coop, I've been working with him for on my own tennis for years. I remember during one lesson, I stopped and I was like, "Hey, Coop, look, I can feel myself wanting to impress you, and it's kind of getting in the way of how I'm trying to take in what you're telling me." And he's like, "Dude, you can impress me not by hitting the ball hard. Like anyone can hit the ball hard. You'll impress me if you just hit the ball toward that cone and just do that. Like do the drill." I remember thinking, like, "Wow." My schematic of what I could do to make him think I was a good player was totally off, because he doesn't care if I tree my forehand twice out of 30. He's like, yeah, great for you if you can make more than that, but you can't yet. So hit the ball to the cone, do that for as long as you need to do that. That's going to impress me. So it
So
really just depends on the viewpoint you're looking at it from things.
love it, man. Well, it's been an absolute blast, and thanks for joining the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.